Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at solving different rate problems. So there's going to be a lot of conversions, so we're going to be either using a proportion or a multiply technique. So some strategies that we got, I just kind of said them, but first one is to set up a proportion. So when we do that, the units must be the same in the numerator and in the denominator. So if you have kilograms in the top of the fraction, it has to be also in the other top of the other fraction. So we're going to do an example where we have 4 kilograms and we want to convert this into pounds. So we got to figure out how many pounds. Now we got to be given a conversion factor or know a conversion factor. In 1 kilogram, that is 2.2 pounds. So I can just write out in 1 kilogram, that is equal to 2.2 pounds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two and make a proportion out of them. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fraction line right there. So it's going to be 4 over blank pounds. And then I'll do the same thing with this one. It'll be fraction line right there. And then I'll have 1 over 2.2. So I'm going to do that right now. We're going to have 4 kilograms divided by, and then I don't know how many pounds. So I'm just going to put blank pounds and then equals. And then we had 1 kilogram was equal to 2.2 pounds. And again, you can see we got kilogram in top, pound in the bottom, pound in the bottom. And then once we have this, to solve for this missing spot here, we can do cross multiply and divide. So I'm just going to put an x in there. So to figure out what the x is, we have to cross multiply these two across from each other. So that's going to be 4 times 2.2. So we got 4 times 2.2. And then divide by the 1 across from the x. So we're going to divide by a 1, which dividing by 1 isn't going to do anything. So we're going to get x is equal to 4 times 2.2, that is 8.8. So we get 8.8 pounds. The other way that we could have solved the problem like that is using a multiply technique. So it says multiply to eliminate units. So the unit in the numerator is going to cancel with the same unit in the denominator. So we're going to do the same question, just using a different technique. So if I have 4 kilograms, you could picture 4 kilograms as like 4 over 1, but you wouldn't have to put that. What I want to do is I want to multiply by something so that when I multiply, my kilogram is going to cancel. So right now, kilogram, again, if you put kilogram over 1, it's in the top of a fraction. So I got to put kilogram in the bottom so that 1 is in the top, 1 is in the bottom, and then they are going to cancel. And I knew that 1 kilogram was equal to 2.2 pounds. So the 2.2 pounds has to go in the top. And then this kilogram and this kilogram can cancel because one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. And then what I'm going to get out from this, I just have 4 times 2.2. And my units are the only thing that didn't cancel. It's going to be pounds. So 4 times 2.2 is 8.8. And then my units were pounds. So you can see that whichever way we do it, we get the same answer for both of these. So maybe if you're really good at setting up proportions, just use proportions to solve questions. If you're good at using the elimination or the multiply method, use that one instead. So in our first example, this one deals with gummy bears. It says 12 gummy bears cost $1.63. How many gummy bears could you buy for $15? So for this one, I'm going to use a proportion. So for $1.63, I got 12 gummies. So I'm going to put 12 and then gummies. And I want to figure out how much I could get for $15. So $15 is in the numerator here. I'm going to have to put $15 in the numerator here. And then I don't know how many gummies I'm going to get. So to figure out what that question mark is, all we have to do is cross multiply and then divide. So I'm going to cross multiply these two. So I'm going to have 15 times 12. So 15 times 12. And then I got to divide by the one across from the question mark, which was $1.63. So when we calculate that, you're going to get 110.429, and then there's some decimals after that. Now, if you went into a store and you had $15, you wouldn't be able to buy 110.429 gummies. You would either have to buy 110 gummies or you'd have to buy 111 gummies. but you don't have enough money for 111, so you have to round this down. You can only actually buy 110 gummies. So our answer would be therefore 110 gummy bears. Moving to example 2 here now. This one's going to deal with the cost of fuel. So it says Jeff lives in a town near the Canada-US border. The gas tank of his truck holds about 90 liters. He can either buy gas in town for $1.06 per liter or travel across the border to the US to fill up at $2.86 per US gallon. So this is US dollars and it's not in liters, it's now in gallons. The exchange rate today is $1 Canadian is equal to 72 cents US. And then it asks which option makes the most sense economically. So which are you going to get the better deal, or which one would you pick basically? And we're also told one other thing, 1 US gallon is equal to 3.79 liters. So we are going to break this down into 2 parts. We're going to have the Canada option, that would be buying our fuel in Canada, and then we're going to have our US option. So I'm just going to separate the 2. So for Canada, this one's fairly simple. It was $1.06 per liter. So that one, I already know how much it's going to cost. They just outright told me. The other one they did as well, but it's in different units. So we're going to have to convert it. So that one we're starting with $2.86, and that's in US dollars. So I'm going to put USD, so that's US currency, and that is for 1 gallon. So we are going to need to convert this US dollars to Canadian dollars and also convert the gallons into liters. So for this one, I'm going to use my multiplication technique. So I'm going to multiply by something. And first, let's maybe try to get rid of our US dollars. So if US is in the top, I'm going to have to put US down here in the bottom, and then I'll have Canadian dollars up here in the top. So I knew that 1 Canadian dollar was 72 cents US. So I'm going to have to put 1 Canadian goes with 72 cents US. And then I can see I'm going to have US dollars canceling with US dollars. But I also want to cancel this gallon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by another conversion factor where I want to get rid of the gallon. And what I want to get out is I want to get out the liter. And I have this conversion. 1 US gallon is 3.79 liters. So 1 US gallon is 3.79 liters. And now I can have gallon canceling out with gallon. You wouldn't have to do both of these conversion factors at the same time. You could have just done this one first, got out an answer, and then use this one to convert again, but you can just do it all in one step if you like as well. So to calculate this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take 286, then we're going to have to divide by 72 cents, and then divide by 379. So I'm just going to get out my calculator and do that. So that was 286, and then divide by 0.72, and then also divided by 3.79, and then I can click equals. So I get that right there. If you weren't sure if typing it in like that would be correct, you could also just put in the whole thing. You could put in 2.86, and then go times, and then put brackets 1 over 0.72, and then close the brackets. So that's kind of this piece right here is this piece right here, and then go times, and then make another piece, 1 divided by 3.79. So type that in, and then you could click equals, and you can see we get the same thing. So I'm just going to write that number down on our page here now. So that was 1.0480, and then there were some more decimals after that. And the only unit that we had in the top of our fraction that didn't cancel was Canadian dollars. So this is Canadian dollars. And the only thing that we had in the bottom of the fraction that didn't cancel was a liter. So this is per 1 liter. And because this is money, right, and whenever we deal with money, we're going to need to round it, and it always rounds to 2 decimal places. So this is going to be 1.0, and then this 8 is going to round up that 4, so we're going to get 1.05, and this is Canadian dollars, so I'm just going to put Canadian dollars, and this is per liter. So now that we have the price for what it would cost in the US in Canadian dollars per liter, I can compare with the Canadian price. So I can see that this one is cheaper, but you would have to drive down across the border into the States to get your fuel and then drive back. So economically, this one might not be the best because you're going to end up spending money driving there and driving back. So this option for a cent more is probably going to be your better pick, but this one is the cheaper price. So let's just write that on our page. So I just wrote for the US price, it's going to be cheaper, but you're going to have to drive there and then drive back. Whereas for the Canadian one, you don't have to do that. So if I had to pick one, I would pick the Canadian price. So lastly now we have example number 3. And in this one it says, Paula is asked to order snacks for an office meeting of 180 people. She decides to order dessert squares, which comes in boxes of 24. She estimates that she will need 2.5 squares per person, so every person gets 2.5 squares. How many boxes should she buy? So if we have 180 people, I'm going to first figure out how many squares we're going to need. So if we have 180 people and each of them needs 2.5 squares, I'm going to have to multiply by 2.5. And I'll show you why we actually are multiplying here. So for every 2.5 squares, that was for one person. And you can see now we have people in the top and people in the bottom, so those two are going to cancel out. And that is how I know that I have to multiply. If you just kind of know that you had to multiply, that's fine too. So 180 times 2.5, that's going to be 450. And our only unit was squares. So we have 450 squares that we're going to be getting. And then I still have to figure out how many boxes we need. And I know that each box, there's going to be 24 in a box. So if I multiply by some conversion factor here, I want to get rid of squares. So I'm going to put squares in the bottom of my fraction. And I know there's 24 squares in one box. So squares will cancel with squares. And what I'm going to get out of this, I have 450 times 1, which is 450, and then divide by 24. So I'm just going to say this is 450 divided by 24, and my only units that I have left is a box. So this is going to be a box written down here, and then 450 divided by 24, that is equal to 18.75. So we're going to get 18.75 boxes of chocolate. But now again, whenever you guys have questions like this in this unit, you got to make sure that your final answer doesn't make sense. So you couldn't buy 18.75 boxes. You either have to buy 18 or you got to buy 19. Now, you got to think about whether you should round up or round down. So don't just think, oh, it's over 0.5, so I need to round up. In most cases, you're going to need to round up, even if this was like 18.2. Because if you round down to 18, then you're not going to have enough desserts for everybody. If you round up to 19, then you're going to have more than enough. You'll just have a little bit extra. So what we need to do is we need to round this up to 19 boxes. So I just wrote there 19 boxes are needed in order to have enough. So lastly, at the bottom, I just got our textbook questions. So we're on page 458. And for number 6 here, if you have someone to do this with, you can do this with a partner. Or if you don't, you can either Google this or just do a little bit of research to help yourself with number 6.